Okay, I think I'm going to explain a little bit about objects in JavaScript and in programming in general. I think that will help a little bit with getting this project done, project 8.3, the pizza store. I know that's been a problem. There's a few things about it that I think were a little bit tough to get through for sure. The whole idea about objects, I think this is not something, it's not a topic that you can just sit down and go through this project and then you've got a full understanding of objects, I don't think. Also, I think there were some things with the project itself, with the instructions on it, that weren't quite clear, and so it made it real hard, I think, to finish the project without doing some extra looking around online, probably yourself to finish the project. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I've got a document that I put together here. Also, this document really is, the content of this document is a web file, an HTML file that has JavaScript in it, and it's got three. It displays and models three different ways to create objects. It shows the syntax for each of them and talks about the different aspects of each one. And we're using several of these in the project 8.3. So I think it's useful to understand this a little bit. If you are planning, and I don't know why you would be taking this class if you weren't planning to be a web developer of some type, or maybe a designer, and you just want to know something, some basics about JavaScript and move on and be more of a designer, that's fine. If you are really planning to be a software developer, probably it's going to be a good idea to get a hold of the idea of objects, what they're actually doing. It's not really that tough to do once you kind of grasp it, and then it's kind of fun to create and invent things that use objects. So I'm gonna kind of jump in here with this. Objects are really, I think, a really good definition of an object is that it's a variable that can hold multiple variables. That to me is the purpose of an object in a lot of ways. It can hold multiple variables. A lot of what we've done with JavaScript up to this point, you've got a variable that holds a number, or a value, a number, or a piece of text, or a word, or a letter, or a decimal, or a Boolean like true or false. And when you get to the point where you've got the complexity in a program, that you have multiple, you have an item or a thing, a virtual thing that you need to hold more than one variable, that's when you start talking about objects. Okay, so this particular project, we'll talk about this in a bit, uses three different objects. It uses, of course, a cart, a pizza, and a topping object. Okay, and the pizza has toppings in it, and the cart has pizzas and toppings in it. So there's that going on with objects. But I'm going to go ahead and go through this document, because this first little video I'm giving you, I want to explain the syntax for creating objects in these different ways, in these different techniques. Okay, so the first one, the most, I guess, basic one, is to create a single object. You're kind of defining the object and creating it at the same time. That's an object literal, and that's in the green text. I'm going to post this file up where you can get it. The green text is the way to create an object as a literal single instance of an object, and let me explain that just a bit. Objects are the virtual thing that you create. Okay, the class or the constructor function, or I guess we can say in this case the object literal, is the way to define that. It's the definition for that object. It's right here. It's inside the curly brackets in this case, and it's all assigned to a variable name. In this case, for my file, I used three different words that all mean a car or something that we drive around. I used a car, a vehicle, and an auto. So to do object literals, I'm creating a weekend car, okay, or in this case, for my on my button, I'm going to do it as creating a car. It's going to be a weekend car because that's what my variable's called. Okay, and then a little bit below that in the red text, I'm creating a vehicle, and I'm using a function called vehicle. And then I'm going to for the actual that's a constructor function right there, and we'll talk about that. And then in the blue text, I'm using what's called class style of object creation, and I'm going to call it an auto. So they're all the same types of, well, it's different words. I'm trying to differentiate these three different ways to create objects. I don't want it to be confusing. So here in the green text, we've got an object literal. There's quite a few comments in this document, in this file. There's several web pages. I am a little bit skewed towards using W3 Schools. I like the simplicity of what they do. I know some people don't like that. Some hardcore programmers may not go for W3 Schools, but I like the simplicity of it and how to the point it is. When you look something up there, it shows you how to use that thing. One thing that I think is hard to do with some of the projects that we've got, you're learning these topics in the context of really a larger project, and you've got to get through all the steps and grasp the whole project itself before you really can use the concepts that they're teaching you to see them actually work. But I like W3 Schools. I've got them. I've got several web pages on their site here. That it's a huge site that it's really for the web in general. It has a lot of HTML stuff and a lot of cascading style sheet stuff and a lot of JavaScript stuff. So okay, then I've got this comment explaining it, just listing the three types of ways to create objects that we're going to go over right now, and then for each of the techniques I'm using to create an object, I've got some additional comments and then actually the code to do it. Okay, so the web page looks like, let me make sure I'm on the right one. Looks like this right here when you open it up, and it's segmented into buttons that show that you can use to execute this file, the functions and the code for this file to actually create the objects using these different techniques. So I've got an object literal that creates an object. It displays a property from the object, and it will use a method or a function from the object that you are defining in the custom object. Same thing for the object constructor, but it's a different technique. It does the same things though. Creates the object. You get a little message telling you the object is created. It shows it will display a property value like color of the vehicle, and then it will use a function that's been defined in the custom object. Okay, so same thing for the class style of object creation. It will display a little message that the object is created. It will show it will display a property of the object, and then it will make use of one of the custom functions in the object, or the one that I put in there. Okay, so that's how this works. It relates to this code. The actual code itself is right here. You can download this file and use this file. I will also post up a PDF of this so that you can see the color coding and how the particular technique for creating the object goes with the comments and with the actual code that uses that technique. Okay, so in the object literal, everything has to be contained within the brackets. Of course, that's always the case for a constructor or a function, but it's all assigned into a single variable. Okay, or you could use the const keyword or the let keyword here. Any of these I think will do. I've got a few notes about that in the comments. Okay, but this actually is sort of a quick shorthand way to create an object. And let me explain this. This is kind of an important topic about objects. When you are creating an object, it needs the JavaScript engine will need some sort of what we would call a blueprint for creating that object. It needs to know what properties are going to be in it and what methods or functions are going to be in it, if any. Okay, a method is just a function that is defined inside of a constructor function or an object. It belongs to an object. So that is the differentiation of a method, using the term method or function. You can use either one. Everybody's going to know what you're talking about when you're talking about objects, but that's part of the differentiation with the two terms. Okay, function is just by itself technically is like a standalone function in a script, and we are using those as well in this project 8.3. We'll get to that in a different video. Okay, but this is sort of defining what the object's going to be here in this case, as well as creating an instance of it. An instance is when the JavaScript engine takes the blueprint, or what we'll later call the class or the constructor function for an object, and it takes it and uses it and assigns it to a particular copy or variable that contains a copy of that class or that function. Okay, that object, we'll call it. Okay, so in this case, you're really kind of defining it and creating it all at the same time. It's only going to make one copy. It won't. You can't use this to create, like, hey, let's create. If you needed an army of robots in a program that you're making for a game, this would not be the way that you would do it, because you would need to create new variable names, robot 1, robot 2, robot 3, and you'd be using the same code for the content of the constructor function here, and it's very repetitive, and we probably wouldn't do that. Okay, but for when you only need one, and that's how it's going to work, this is fine. This is a fine way to do it. Okay, so that's object literals. Scroll on down here, and we're going to talk about object constructor function, and this is a pretty big step. This is a named function. It has the same name of what the objects are going to be called, a vehicle in this case. It's got 3 parameters. Of course, this part I'm assuming that you already know. The parameters are that are going to be passed to this object. So this constructor function, it's called a constructor because it's going to construct a copy of an object or an instance. They're technically called instances of an object. So it's going to create a vehicle. In our 8.3 project, we're going to create a pizza one at a time. For every time you click the buttons to make a new pizza, it will create a pizza. So in this case, these are the parameters or the pieces of data that are needed to fill out the properties for this object that it wants, the color, the wheel count, and the year. Okay, for a vehicle. So that's what's going on here. I had a little, it's a little confusing, I think, the exact syntax for this. So you need to look at this pretty carefully, I think, to use the proper one that the project's asking for. If it's a constructor function, if it's an object literal, and I think it asks for both of these. Okay, in the project. So you want to try to get the right one. And use it at the right time for the right instruction in that project, and definitely watch the video that I'm going to make for that, because there's definitely some things in this project that I think the instructions are not real clear on. So I want to kind of address that, because this has been a real stickler week, I think, for a lot of people. All right, so this is a constructor function. You can see we're using the keyword this, which refers to that object itself. Once it's created, this particular vehicle dot color is going to be whatever color you give it. Same thing for the wheel count, same thing for the year. Then you've got a function, this dot get year equals function. Okay, now there's something, I guess it's okay like that, and that will create a method, a function that you can call using the dot syntax of your when you create your instance. Okay, so if you create a vehicle, you use this constructor function, and we'll show this in the project. Okay, when you use when you're creating an instance of this particular object, a vehicle, you might say var Mustang equals new vehicle, and then you would give it a color, maybe red, 4 wheels, and 1972. Okay, and that would create a new instance of an old Mustang, antique Mustang. Okay, and then you would be able to say Mustang dot get year, and what it would give you back would be 1972. Okay, that's how it would, actually in this case it's putting it into an alert. Okay, and it'll pop open an alert box. It'll say 1972. Okay, and you can see that that's exactly what this page is doing. Create a vehicle. It displays a property. Yellow is the color, and that's being used. That's using. We're using this dot color to get that. It comes up on down here. Let me show this to you because this is good. The HTML. These are the this is the body of this file. This is the object literal area. This is the object constructor function area, and you can see input type show object constructor property. My doombuggy.color. That I created a doombuggy. Okay, so my doombuggy.color. Did I leave that called doombuggy? Yeah, I did right there. Const my doombuggy equals new vehicle. Yellow's the color, and because of the way this constructor function works, this piece of code right here is pretty important. New vehicle. It creates a new instance of the vehicle function or the vehicle object through this constructor function. In this case, it's going to be called my doombuggy. That particular instance variable is called my doombuggy. Actually, it's not a variable because, in a strict sense, because it's a constant here. But my doombuggy, okay, and the color's yellow, and it's got a couple other parameters there. And then the buttons will ask for. This button, the last button in that section, will use object constructor method my doombuggy.get year, and that's displaying the use of this little function right here, get year, and it's just going to do an alert, which is what it does right here, and you can see it, 1974. Okay, so that's how that's working. I just want to give this to you. I know if you're serious about trying to really get a hold of object-oriented programming and being a better JavaScripter and doing it professionally, you're going to need to you're going to need to watch something like this video or others that are probably better done than mine, probably several times to get a pretty good understanding of what's going on with this. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into here. Let's do the last section, class style of object creation. That new keyword's pretty important. We'll use that again in the class style. I like that because it's the closest way that JavaScript has of working with objects, creating new objects. It's the most. I've got it in the notes here. It's the most like real fully object-oriented programming languages like Java, C# or C++. It's more like how they traditionally define, create, and use objects. Okay, so I like using this syntax. It makes me feel like I'm doing Java, even though I'm not. But it's the most similar. And if you're going to move into those languages, getting used to it here is a pretty good on-ramp for using it there. I think, and that's how I've taught it in previous classes. So here's the comment for class style object creation. It's a little different. The function looks a little bit different. The constructor function, it's a little more formal. Okay, these are very similar. You're still going to use the new keyword. Like in this case, we'll use new auto, and you'll be able to create a new. Here I'm going to create a new auto. It's going to be a Ford. It's going to be green. It's going to what is that? Fuel level is 100% in this case, and it's going to be called an instance called family car. Okay, so I can remember having old family cars. So make auto. That's the function that's going to be used by the button to display the use of a constructor not a constructor function, but a method inside of that's defined inside of the function. In this case, it's going to be called. Let me see here. Fill it up. Okay, and it's gonna display the fuel. Okay, the fuel level. Okay, so let me go through this real quickly. This is how this works. Create a new auto. It creates it. These are created automatically because we've got standalone functions inside right here. This will just run. Okay, it's a variable, and it will just run when the page loads. It just runs and creates this family car instance of the auto object. Okay, automatically. This is not what we would call a method because it's not actually inside of any other constructor function. Okay, for a class or for an object. It's just a standalone little function that gets run when the page loads. And then this function is also a standalone function. It's not considered a method, but it is connected, of course, to the button. On click family car fill it up. Family car dot fill it up. It uses the dot syntax. Okay, so that will run that will cause that function to run and then display 100%. Okay, let's get rid of this, and 100 fuel level is full. Okay, so it's 100. All right, so that's giving me that's my actual code. This I think is easier for you to see because it's all color coded, dividing out the different techniques for creating objects. I'm going to post this up as well. I think this is useful. I didn't mean for this to be a 20-minute video, but you know, it just takes time to explain these things, and hopefully if you're committed to really understanding how JavaScript works, I hope this makes it a little bit more clear. These work. They're working in this file. You can see them work. I'll post both this color-coded file and the actual HTML file with the JavaScript in it, and you can check them out if you want to. But I think that you're going to need to understand the different ways that functions are created, the actual syntax, and I think this project 8.3 was a little bit tough to figure that out from what was in the book. I think even all the way through the chapter and even in the hands-on project, I think it was a little bit tough to figure that out. I think people were digging around on the internet and looking for different resources, which is fine, but I think it's, I think this is you need a little bit of help with this. So, all right, that's going to close this out, and I will post another video for specifically Project 8.3 in the pizza store. Thanks.